we have this right? Is this what the Hadith says? Is this what the Quran says? Is this how you would define this? Is this how you would say this is the way we're allowed to live our lives and conduct our business? We got it right. So it's not my opinion. But in here on page 68 begins the 20-year plan. 20 to the year 2020. And it's different phases of something called the project, which we have done a documentary on. You can watch it on the Blaze. It's probably one of the most critical pieces of information that the government has suppressed under the Bush administration. And then in the last part of the Bush administration, it was released. And now President Obama just completely dismisses it. I don't know how you can dismiss it. It was found in the home of an Al-Qaeda leader right after 9/11. It is the Muslim Brotherhood's plan. Remember, the Muslim Brotherhood is a largely secular group with no ties whatsoever to Islam and absolutely nothing to do with radical Islam. But in their own documents, here's what they say. Phase 1, the Muslim awakening. Beginning with 9/11 and ending with the U.S. invasion of Iraq, this phase was aimed at provoking the West. The first phase was judged by the strategists and the masterminds behind Al-Qaeda as very successful. A battlefield was opened up and the Americans and their allies became a closer and easier target. Phase 2, called Opening Eyes, between 2003 and 2006. This second phase was the mainstreaming of Al-Qaeda's cause within the Muslim world. The terrorist organization becomes a broader ideological movement, the vanguard for a political effort to reawaken millions of followers of Islam and return them to their foundations of faith. This phase is primarily accomplished through propaganda broadcasts around the world, with tactical battlefield victories in Afghanistan and Iraq in particular, which the United States invaded in March 2003. It became the base of all global operations. More and more Muslims are recruited to join the cause, and other like-minded terrorist organizations pledged Biyat or allegiance to the cause. Phase 3, arising and standing up. 2007 to 2010. This according to their own documents. This fight expands from Iraq and the assault begins in neighboring Syria, Jordan, Turkey, and Israel, where secular and anti-Islamic governments reign. Special priority would be placed on Syria. Phase 4, collapse, 2010-2013. Revolution begins to sweep the Middle East, and the infidel governments, such as Egypt, begin to fall. These hated regimes are to be swept away by popular revolts. The creeping loss of the regime's power will lead to a steady growth in strength within Al-Qaeda. This according, again, to the Muslim Brotherhood, a document that was found after 9/11. Phase 4, the Caliphate, which, of course, is ludicrous. An Islamic State will be formally declared. The West will begin to lose much of its will to fight, allowing Al-Qaeda and its allies to recreate the Caliphate for the first time in 9 decades. Because Western resistance is limited, the Caliphate will grow over time in strength and in territory. Its first step in replacing the world order of sovereign nation states with a new world order divided between the Caliphate and Muslim community of believers and the unbelievers, or House of War. Then, Phase 6. Do you believe that we have accomplished all 5? Because I do. Phase 6 is 0 hour. I'll tell you what that is when we come back. Sponsor this half hour is Solutions from Science. Remember the president said under my plan, electric rates will necessarily skyrocket? If somebody wants to start a coal-fired power plant, they can. It'll just bankrupt them. He's already attacking our coal. It's the single largest source of electricity in the U.S., and he declared war on the coal industry. We have shut down coal-fired power plants. Now, here's the thing. Did you hear what I said about Crimea? There's something called the Project, which we have gone over before, but it is critical that you understand where we are in history and what is coming. I know this is Monday, and it's the Monday before Thanksgiving, and a lot of people are thinking about the holidays, etc., etc., but I want to put in you today a sense of urgency, not to let the holidays distract you from what the rest of the world is going through and what is coming on our shores. I believe we are approaching or at something called 0 hour. And I will explain that to you today. But I'm going through the project from the Muslim Brotherhood, and you can find this in the book that I put out over the summer. It is about Islam. But we're up to phase 6 of the project. And I'll explain what that is when we come back. Enemies. It helps to know what they think and what they say. The U.S. government spends hundreds of billions of dollars every year gathering intelligence information about Al-Qaeda and its affiliate terrorist organizations. For a tiny fraction of the cost and with far less danger to our civil liberties, they could just read newspapers and accounts from people who have actually spent time with terrorists and understand their goals and their grand strategy. We could also read something called the Project. The Project is a document that was originally made by Al-Qaeda. Remember, Al-Qaeda is now defunct. But what is left in its place is ISIS. We went, and because we wanted to defeat ISIS, Al-Qaeda, we went and we funded much of the remnants of Al-Qaeda because they wanted to get rid of Assad in Syria. Well, we were on this let's topple all of the regimes of the Middle East kick. People always ask, is the world better off without Saddam Hussein?
No.
Has anybody asked, is the Middle East better off now without Mubarak, without Muammar Gaddafi, and soon without Assad? By the way, Lebanon, nobody really talked about the strikes in Beirut that happened just a day or two before Paris. That was ISIS going in because that's the stronghold of Hezbollah. And Hezbollah and ISIS don't get along.
Hezbollah.
And so they killed 40 people on the streets in Beirut. Lebanon probably is the next regime to fail and fall. That's right next to Israel.
Is it next to Israel? I think they are, Hezbollah.
So what is the plan? Well, I gave you the plan, the first 5 steps. The first one is Muslim awakening, the opening of eyes, arising and standing up, the collapse, then the caliphate. All of those have been done. So now, what is the 6th phase? There are only 7, by the way. The 6th phase is total confrontation. The shocking rise of the caliphate will instigate the fight between the believers and the non-believers. This, in the terrorist view, will then be the West's final dying breath to confront the growing Islamic armies. The West will have to muster all of its technical capabilities and advantages to destroy the caliphate and the many thousands of Muslims who have volunteered to fight on its behalf. You know, it's really interesting to me, 2 things. Are we really truly using all of our might to fight? U.S. pilots confirm that the Obama administration has blocked 75% of ISIS airstrikes.
Talk to that girl.
Let me read that again. U.S. pilots confirm Obama administration has blocked 75% of ISIS airstrikes. Pilots returning from the battlefield said the targets are often blocked by the administration for fear of collateral damage and civilian casualties. We went to 12 full months with ISIS on the march without the U.S. using their air power. And now the pilots come back and say that 3/4 of our ordnances we can't drop. We can't get clearance even when we have a clear target in front of us. We don't understand the strategy because that has allowed ISIS to take advantage and ability to recruit.
Or civilians are in the way.
Here's the explanation.
You can't bomb them.
We agreed we were going to use air power, and the military said, here's how it will work. And the president said, quote, no, I don't want any civilian casualties. And the response was, but there's always some civilian casualties. We have the best capability in the world to protect civilians from casualties. And the president interrupted and said, quote, no, you don't understand. I want no civilian casualties. Zero. But you can't fight a war like that. And that's why we're coming home, and ISIS was allowed to plot the Paris bombings at a place that we knew where it was. We knew right where it was. We gave that information to Paris. France went and bombed it after the attacks. But we knew where it was. But if we were trying to really degrade and destroy ISIS, we would have taken that place out long ago. But of course, we've been doing this for 18 months, so there must be nothing that anybody else can do. 355 ISIS targets in Syria destroyed by Russian Air Force in the last 48 hours alone. This is Wednesday. Russian Air Force carried out air raids against oil sites for ISIS terrorist organization, destroying 500 oil tanks that they were smuggling oil from Syria to Iraq. Meanwhile, the military source confirmed that 355 targets for self-complained Islamic State terrorist organization were destroyed in the countryside. The Russian Air Force, in cooperation with the Syrian Air Force, carried out 186 sorties against ISIS sites in Syria. It added 26 command centers, 35 depots, 28 fortified sites, 3 training camps, 8 explosives factories, and 86 heavy weapons stores. Yes, but we've been doing our job, haven't we?
Man.
We're not serious about it at all.
Nope, I told you we weren't. He was like 8 flyings a day.
But could I ask, do we have a choice?
When they're doing the, so what I'm saying?
Currently, we are spending $1 trillion a year on the military and security. $1 trillion a year. May I ask, do you believe our military, are you getting your money's worth for $1 trillion? If this was your money, which it is, and you were in charge of the military, would you say, job well done? Would you say, there's nothing we can fix here? It's running at its best. You're spending $1 trillion a year on military and security. When it comes to your security, do you feel that money is being well spent? Do you feel like, I wouldn't change anything? Or do you wonder, where is all that money going to? What are we getting for the $1 trillion? But here's the bad thing. We're currently spending $1 trillion a year on our military, and we're not at a global war. Why do they call Afghanistan the graveyard of nations, empires? Why did Osama bin Laden say, when he started this, I will do to the American empire what I did to the Russian empire?
Remember that? We supported all that.
He said that because he knew if you can get an empire roped into Afghanistan, they'll make that a graveyard for themselves. Now, we didn't do it in Afghanistan. We did it all across the Middle East. And how was it a Soviet graveyard? A, it demoralized the people. The people felt beaten, tattered. They couldn't believe they were being beaten by a ragtag group of people that lived in caves. They're the Soviet Union, for the love of Pete. But more importantly, and this is what Reagan knew, we could spend them into oblivion. When what's his name? Ted Kennedy kept saying, you know what, these guys you got to stop talking about Star Wars. And for anybody who's not my age, Star Wars is more than a movie. Star Wars was this idea that we could knock missiles out of space by using laser weapons. And Reagan said, we're going to build these laser weapons. Now, scientists internally said, we don't have that capability.
I remember that.
And internally, Reagan said, shut up, they don't know that. But the left decided not to play that game. The left decided to say, that was too expensive, that was crazy, the technology won't even work. Reagan kept saying internally, shut the hell up. What Reagan was doing was spending them into oblivion. He knew if he built up his weapons, they would have to build up their weapons. Don't think that it's not a lesson that Putin didn't learn. That if they start flexing their muscles, we'll have to flex ours. Don't think that this isn't a lesson that ISIS knows, because Osama bin Laden knew it. It was the strategy of Al-Qaeda. It's why they hit us in our financial district first. They're trying to collapse our economy, because without our economy, we've got nothing. We're spending $1 trillion a year on war that we can't afford now. What happens when there's total war? What happens when we really have to get serious and fight? How long does the United States last before it collapses?
$1 trillion, a lot of money.
I'm going to show you the good side and the bad side. I'm going to show you what's coming. And I'm going to show you what ISIS has said to people in the United States. This is what you need to do. And whether the universities know it or not, they are working together hand in hand with ISIS. For any millennial that will sit at your Thanksgiving table, I'm going to give you information that you need to get into their hands. And they're going to call you an old fuddy-duddy. They're going to call you all kinds of names. But I'm going to give you the information that comes from ISIS itself. And I want you to have that at your dinner table. So when they sit down at your dinner table and they start talking about, the strife and all of the things that they're taking and they're fixing with Black Lives Matter and everything else, I want you to pull this out and say, this comes from ISIS. This is an ISIS document.
God, make that.
Whether you know it or not, you're working hand in hand with ISIS. Congratulations on that.
Black Lives Matter.
Also, Johnny Moore is going to join us in a few minutes, and I'm just going to touch base with him because there's some good news that is happening around the world, and I want to talk to him about the good guys that should be rescued. The Christians, and an update on the Nazarene Fund coming up in just a second. Our sponsor this half hour is LifeLock. You're going out and Black Friday, and I'm sorry to say that my dad was a small business owner, and I know what that means, but be aware of your surroundings this Black Friday. Be aware of your surroundings in the malls. Anyway, every time that you put a credit card down, somebody is there looking to take your information. You're leaving little tidbits of personal information, your name, your credit card numbers. And in the digital world, someone can use that little tidbit of information to steal your identity and take everything. But we met probably, I don't even know, about 1,000 people at a book signing. And it was, the people there were so nice, so kind, so gracious. I was just thrilled to see the people, and an astounding number of millennials that were there. And quite honestly, some of them came up and I'm like, okay, here we go with a Black Lives Matter protest or something. Not at all. Really, really great people. And I want to thank everybody for coming out to the book signing in Shreveport. If you haven't gotten the book, the Immortal Nicholas, read the reviews online. I see them coming into Facebook, and it is really a wonderful, deeply moving book that is not just a Christmas book, but is the story of Santa. How did he become immortal? Why is he immortal? It has nothing to do with elves and has everything to do with the birth and the death of that man. The Immortal Nicholas. It's available in bookstores everywhere. It's meant to be read out loud to your family. It's not a kid's book. It's more like Harry Potter. But read it. Read it. People are coming up now and buying. I got a letter from a woman who said, I read it. I just bought my 26th copy. She said, everybody I know is getting one for Christmas. It makes a great Christmas present. The Immortal Nicholas, available in bookstores or at glennbeck.com/theimmortal.
You're listening to the Glenn Beck Program.
The Blaze Radio Network.
So what does Inspire Magazine tell those who want to work with ISIS to do? Remember, one of my predictions was that the left, the anarchists, the socialists, the communists would work together with the Islamists. And that was mocked. But let me prove to you this hour that is happening and happening on our college campuses, and give you the information that you need so when you sit down at dinner for Thanksgiving and your kids or the grandkids or whoever come back to the table for Thanksgiving and they come back from college, you can tell them and educate them, not with some crackpot on the radio that they don't want to listen to, but with the words of ISIS itself, and show how they are actually working hand in hand with ISIS. We do that right now. All we want is
What you're about to hear is the fusion of entertainment and enlightenment. This is the Glenn Beck Program.
all we want is love. Brussels is in lockdown today. Paris is afraid of more strikes, this time on their water system. The Vatican, the State Department is saying don't travel to the Vatican and watch yourself if you're around the Vatican. Inspire Magazine, which is ISIS, their own magazine, is explaining what the next phase is and what they're asking people of the world to do. And our universities are doing it. I asked a few friends of mine who are in this business to give me a rundown of what they think is coming our way. I'll explain that. A lot of people now in the Intel community are talking about something called 0 hour, which 0 hour was described by me years ago as that moment when the world says, now, go, 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 go. 0 hour is the time set for the start of a military operation. They say we are at 0 hour now, or it approaches quickly. You can feel it. Inspire Magazine, in a nutshell, and I'm going to come back to this, gives a few points on what they believe that people should do. If you are in league with ISIS, if you want them to succeed, here's what you should do. You should, and I'm quoting, exploit racial issues. Encourage African Americans to form protest groups. And then encourage assassination of racist politicians.
Assassinations.
We are headed for 1968. They, in this magazine, talk about how to pick the right target, how to make your own bombs, which weapons you should pick. I don't want to give you more information than that. But I'm going to make this available at glennbeck.com. Just enough of it so your kids, when they come back to the dinner table, they will know you are doing exactly what ISIS wants you to do, whether you know it or not. When I wrote on my chalkboard years ago that the anarchist and the leftist will work together with the Islamist, I didn't mean that they would be contacting each other and working together like, hey, okay, it's your turn, you do this now. They would have similar goals. And those similar goals are now putting the pressure for the bottom to rise up and the top to come down and to turn us inside out. We are at 0 hour, and the world is a mess because we've left a vacuum. We're not leading on any front. In fact, we're leading in the wrong direction in the places we do lead. We're leading the world into saying, hey, every person is exactly equal, and you shouldn't look at anything about that person when you're bringing them in. If they're a refugee, they're all equal. No, they're not. No, they're not. There is a reason why we had Ellis Island. And it wasn't about racism. It was about, let's make sure we know who's here. Quite honestly, if you had TB, you were turned away. How could you possibly do that? Because we didn't want tuberculosis to spread in our population. We don't want an even more deadly disease spread in our population, and that is Islamic extremism. And you cannot tell me that I love these people on TV. What are you going to ask them if they're Christian? What are you going to ask them if they're terrorists?
Are you a terrorist, sir?
It is spreading among our own population. We don't need any help from the outside. And the president is dead wrong. Bill Maher is exactly right. Bill Maher came out and said, we really need to start saying that all societies and all civilizations are not equal. They're not. There are some that are riddled with disease, and I'm not talking about a physical disease. I'm talking about a spiritual disease. Ideologies that, quite honestly, lead to female mutilation, slavery, rape, honor killings. I'm sorry, but those aren't equal.
They sell our women on the market. They said they're going to do.
Johnny Moore is joining us now because he has been on the front lines leading the fight to bring in Christian refugees. And Johnny, can you tell me the difference between a Christian refugee? I mean, how dare you make this racist and this Islamophobic differentiating point? But can you tell me the difference between the Christian refugees and the Muslim refugees?
Yeah, Glenn, it's really, really simple. There is no Christian member of ISIS, not one, not a single Christian member of ISIS. And by the way, All these Christians in the Middle East are pacifists to begin with. They wouldn't even know what to do with a gun if they found one. I mean, this is just totally, totally incomprehensible. Last week, when the president spoke most passionately in an hour-long press conference at the G20, he spoke most passionately about what I characterize as discriminating against Christians, because that's what he's decided to do. And what's so strange about this, Glenn, is that the UN Declaration of Human Rights, the UN Convention on Genocide, official State Department policy, every non-sectarian, non-religious NGO in the world has always provided special treatment to those who've been persecuted for religion. And yet for months we've been saying it, we've been very, very clear about it, that it seems like this administration is discriminating against Christians, and they denied it. The State Department released press release after press statement after press statement, and then the president just came clean last week in front of world leaders at the G20 and made it very, very clear Christians aren't welcome from the Middle East in the United States unless they just slip in.
He's saying that there is no genocide of Christians.
No, he's done it from the beginning, and it's crazy. I mean, I don't even know how you believe this. 1 million Christians are gone from Syria in 5 years. 1 million Christians, over 1 million Christians, are gone from Iraq in the last 7 or 8 years. I mean, this is like it is really, really, really shameful. And the fact that the president is spending all of his energy, trying to make those of us who want to provide special treatment to genocide victims look like bigots at this time when we're facing a just total crisis when it comes to the fact that in Europe and the United States we haven't a clue who's here. I mean, this is really, really terrible, and it's very, very, very dangerous. And by the way, he speaks, caustically about all this stuff. Last week he said sarcastically, what do these Republicans, what do these conservatives want? They're scared of widows and orphans from Syria. Well, the truth is we are scared of widows and orphans from Syria because we don't know if they carry the ideology. Why is this woman a widow? Did her husband die fighting for ISIS? What have they been teaching their children? What about the communities that they're going in the United States? Because those of us who are close to the situation know two things. The first thing that we know is the vast majority of Muslims aren't going to strap a bomb to themselves. The second thing that we know is those that are often ideologically led by the woman in the home. It's the mother that teaches the ideology to the children. And oftentimes the husbands follow that path. And so, I think a lot of us that are close to the Middle East are terrified of the fact that we're not scrutinizing things. And the other side of this, too, is we right now at the Nazarene Fund, with Mercury One, we have employed former United States intelligence agents that are doing our own vetting of our own Christian refugees before we settle them. And I was just talking to one of them last week, and she told me, she said, vetting is difficult for professionals. It's difficult for CIA people. So the fact that we're leaving this to untrained UN people or immigration people, I mean, it's just really, really scary, Glenn. There's just so many things to be worried about right now.
How do you argue this with your friends? If you're listening and your friends are going to be, around a Thanksgiving table, and I can guarantee you some of them are going to say, we have to bring the Syrian refugees in. We have to. This is so un-American to say no to Syrian refugees. How would you argue that?
I tell them, how compassionate are we being if we're endangering the United States of America? We're endangering our own children. It's absolutely true that most of these refugees aren't going to strap a bomb to themselves. But it's absolutely true that the United States of America hasn't effectively figured out how to discern who is and who isn't dangerous. And we just discovered last week in a Senate hearing, Glenn, that there were five individuals who were recruited by ISIS that worked in the United States airports, including LAX, the airport I fly out of every other day of my life. I mean, there are really, really alarming things. And by the way, don't mention the fact that that Europe has embraced such an attitude of tolerance, like you were describing moments ago, that they allowed all of this to fester. And those of us who have been studying this and close to this, this wasn't a surprise to us. Paris wasn't a surprise. When I wrote my ISIS book a year ago, one of the most startling pieces of information I stumbled upon was that 31% of the Arabic language tweets in Belgium that mentioned ISIS were in support of ISIS. And this information was in the public domain a year ago. I remember being in France, in Lyon, just 7 or 8 years ago with a group of students from Liberty University. We were distributing food in a poor community, a poor immigrant community outside of Lyon. And we were run out of that immigrant community by people throwing stones at us, literally throwing stones at us. I mean, this has been allowed to fester. And now we're living in a global world. And so right now, one of the things that we know is that at least 1,800 French citizens with French passports traveled over to Syria. They fought for ISIS because they have French passports, unless they're on a list. And everyone has admitted, the EU and the United States have admitted that our lists are insufficient. Those people with French passports can fly back to France. They can get on a French plane. And because of the visa waiver program, they can arrive at any airport in the United States and do whatever they want unless they happen to be on a list. And the FBI director told our Congress just over a month ago that our Syrian list is dismal. And by the way, a number of the people in France were on our list. But we're so incapable of organizing our intelligence and working cooperatively with other countries that these people were allowed to just sort of wander around Europe. I mean, this is really, really a precarious moment.
Johnny, I know that the first group of refugees is coming out of Syria here in the next few weeks before Christmas. How are they feeling? Because I would imagine, I spent a lot of time this weekend thinking, if I'm one of them and I see the world collapsing around, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do, because you're not going to escape this. What are they feeling?
I think they're sort of feeling two things. And the first thing is they're still feeling that this is too good to be true. I think down deep inside, they're all waiting for something to fall apart because they're not used to the world showing this type of compassion to Christians. And we keep telling them it's not too good to be true. It's actually going to happen. And secondarily, I think that they actually feel a bit of comfort because they're going into a country in Eastern Europe that very, very early on stood up and said, we're a Christian country. We're more than happy to take Christians, but we're not going to take everyone. And I think that provides another level of security. And then yet on the same token, but because of the way the migration system in Europe has been allowed to function without sufficient regulation and vetting, they're also fearful that people will confuse them as persecuted Christians for Syrians that might be former members of ISIS. I mean, this is what's so crazy, about the situation that they're facing. I mean, the world is in total upheaval. Everyone is confused. Our leaders are doing crazy things. I mean, just today I was reading the news from Iraq, and Russian missiles have accidentally gone into Iraqi airspace where ISIS isn't even. And so you imagine what could happen if a Russian missile, because of their imprecise activities, ends up falling on Baghdad. I mean, we could just have 1,000 apocalypses in every direction that we look. And so what we've done is we've carved out a little bit of peace and security around a really, really persecuted and desperate community. And we're bound and determined that if all hell breaks loose around them, that they will be safe and they will have a future and we will have done our part.
Johnny, we thank you and we pray for you and we pray for the refugees that we're trying to get out. And if you would like to assist, you can go to now.mercury1.org or you can call 844-637-2791 and make a donation. I went to a book signing this weekend. People came with $5, $10 checks, $100 checks, and one family came with a $10,000 check and said, we really want to help a mom and a dad get their family out of there. Johnny, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Now.mercury1.org is the web address. Sponsor this half hour is My Patriot Supply. They've come up with a deal to help you get prepared right now, and I urge you. I talked to my kids again last night, and I said, okay, kids, I told you last week you were going to get on the phone. Tell me, did you get on the phone? They're like, no, Dad, it got busy. I said, stop getting busy. There is nothing more important than this right now. Please, as I told my kids last night, when something happens, they're having an emergency meeting at the Fed today. Why? When something happens, it will be too late. Please call them right now. If you need food supply, you can get a 2-week food supply for $50. That's 50% off the online price right now. Call 888-893-0972, 888-893-0972, and claim yours while supplies last. Limit 2 per caller right now. Stop with the excuses. Please do it now. 888-893-0972.
This is the Glenn Beck Program.
The Blaze Radio Network. Returns.
So last hour I went over the project, and it's talked about in, I don't even know what chapter, on page 68, chapter 4, Reestablishing the Caliphate. It's talked about in the book that I put out this summer called It Is About Islam. Probably one of the more important books that we've ever done, and it's not my opinion. It is verified by those scholars in the Middle East. We wanted to make sure, do we have the Hadith right? Do we have the Quran right? Do we have all of these things correct? Is this actually what it means? Is this what you say it means to the Imams? It is a really important book. We went over that last hour. I want to talk to you a little bit about what's coming next. And we'll do that in 3 minutes.
This is the Glenn Beck Program.
The Blaze Radio Network.
Inspire magazine. Now, Inspire magazine comes from the Caliphate. It's the summer 2015 edition of Inspire magazine, and it is how to accomplish the goals of the Caliphate. We are all part of the Caliphate. This issue in particular is really important because it talks about what's coming in America and what they want to accomplish here in America. But they also talk about how it is now time to strike in France and Mali. When it comes to France, look at it. It is, I'm quoting, it is France that has shared all of America's crimes. It is France that has committed the crimes in Mali and the Islamic Maghreb. It is France that supports the annihilation of Muslims in Central Africa in the name of race cleansing. They are part of the party of Satan, the enemies of Allah the Almighty and the enemies of his prophets, peace be upon them. So, in this particular magazine, they are talking about going after now France and Mali. But they also have another target, the United States of America. In this particular issue, and this is what I want you to share at the dinner table with anybody who is going to college, they encourage those who support the Caliphate to exploit racial issues, to divide black from white, brown from white, yellow from white, encourage African Americans to form protest groups encouraging assassination of racist politicians. Now, I got to be really, really careful here. But when I say it is 1968 all over again, who was killed in 1968?
Oh, Kennedy. Robert Kennedy, right?
Oh, Robert, yeah.
Who is being called a racist politician now? I would urge that the Secret Service, and I say this knowing what this means, that the Secret Service protects all presidential candidates at this point. Please, the Secret Service must protect all presidential candidates.
Donald Trump, they're calling him a racist,
Now,
right?
I just want you to know the Secret Service is so far out of whack with what the Secret Service used to be that I don't even know if that's going to do anything. I will tell you, I went to church in Florida, and I walked into a church where, unbeknownst to me, Mitt Romney was. We happened to be in the same town for a same event, and we both got up on a Sunday morning, and we both happened to go to the same church. Well, he was already in. There was Secret Service in the chapel, and there was Secret Service around the building. I walked in with armed security.
Glenn's got an army with him.
They never stopped them. They never asked. I had a guy with a gun who was outside of the church making his rounds, obviously stalking the church, making his rounds, while Secret Service was supposedly doing the same, standing there in front of the church, not making their rounds.
I hope I started that.
Not noticing my guy stalking the church. Not noticing my guy with a gun. So I don't know what this means to have the Secret Service anymore, but I would strongly urge those members of Congress and those members of the Senate and those members in Department of Homeland Security, anybody who is listening to this broadcast, please protect our presidential candidates, because that's who they're after. But they are also after others. In this book, it talks about, or in this magazine, it talks about how targets should be picked to bring instability to the American economic system. Ben Bernanke, any wealthy entrepreneurs, any wealthy company owners, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Joseph Lawrence, Koch brothers, Sheldon Adelson, Mike Bloomberg, anybody who is a wealthy businessman. And you can see how this would figure in to the same kind of thinking for those who wish to bring down the capitalist system that have nothing to do with ISIS. Nothing to do with ISIS. There is more in this on exactly how to prepare for an assassination. Now, this came out last summer, but I'm warning you, I've been feeling this for quite some time. This is 1968 that we're headed for.
He says you got to take them at their word. You know?
So what can you do to prepare?
They're not just crazy. These people, they're really serious.
Well, let me go to...
They're religious, man, zealots.
Let me go to the...
I like listening to this show. You like it?
The biggest thing that you can do.
He's the chalkboard, man. He's right.
And that is...
All on the chalkboard. The people who are...
Where is your treasure?
Obama,
where is your treasure?
you should see these people, Arnie.
When all is said and done, is it at work? Is it in a bank?
The dots, connects the dots.
Is it home? Is it in your soul? I'm not going to give you any judgment on any of these. That's up to you to answer.
Because when I start talking about
where is your treasure?
No, we're getting.
If your treasure is in a bank, I'd be concerned.
Now he's talking scriptures.
And you have to take steps to take your treasure and balance it out enough to where you know your treasure's not going to be all gone if a bank goes down, if the almighty dollar goes down,
Don't keep it all in one spot.
if your treasure is at work.
Buy 10% of gold.
I would do everything I could to be the most effective, cheapest employee on the payroll.
You lose it here or here.
Because every business is going to have to say, I can't afford this right now, and they're going to look for the most effective,
That cap thing.
the best employees that will work for the lowest cost, because they're just not going to be able to shore it all up. So, treasure in the bank,
Pay penalties on
your treasure is at work,
better than losing all of it.
if your treasure is at home,
Better than
I do everything I could to shore up my family and my kids. I do everything I could to make sure that the family is solid. You're going out in the next couple of days to buy a couple of games to play with the family as they're around the table this weekend. You have to shore up the family. My treasure is in my family
gone.
and in my soul. My wife said to me in one of the more bizarre conversations, I am not going to be shot to death in our bedroom. I'm like, what? Okay, that's good for you. All right, good. That's a good safety tip. I like that, honey. And she said, security measures and blah, blah, blah. And I said, honey, they get to our bedroom, we're dead anyway. And she's like, I am not. And I'm like, honey, this is not going to happen.
He's a Mormon.
She wanted additional security measures. We're putting in additional security measures. I would say that you should do the same. Again, it's not going to happen. But whatever it is that you need to do, if you've been thinking, I need a dog, get a dog.
He says, I look at all these Christians.
I need a gun,
I can't believe it.
get a gun. Did you see what the D.C. mayor said? Or, I'm sorry, chief of police? The D.C. chief of police has come out and said, watching these French attacks, if somebody would have had a gun, the chief of police has said, it's time that you understand that you're the first responder. I'm paraphrasing everything here. But time that you understand you're the first responder. There's only a few things to do. Run, hide, attack.
Your house for anything.
If you can run. But understand that if you can't hide or you can't run, they're going to shoot you and kill you. And they're going to kill a lot of other people too. There comes a time when you have to understand it'll take 7 to 19 minutes for a first responder, quote unquote, to be there. You're the first responder.
Cops said that on TV. I've seen them.
I read this as,
First responders.
if you've ever wanted to have a handgun, it's time that you get a handgun. It's time that you carry one around, because quite honestly, somebody starts shooting, you need to be able to reach back and shoot them before they shoot you or others.
The Supreme Court just ruled against that.
And if your treasure
Have a carry permit.
is in your heart or in your soul,
Against the law, because they tried to say, well, you have to have a reason to have a carry permit.
I'd start working on that now.
Or you have to carry money around. The
I'd start working on that this
knock that.
holiday.
You can't do that to people.
We all know
It says the right to bear arms.
what Thanksgiving is about. But how many of us really, truly use it more than a gathering of food
What if we were out eating
and football?
somebody pulled out a gun and started shooting people?
It is time for us to sit our families down at the table and to truly have a conversation on gratitude. What are you grateful for? Really, truly, when you strip all of the rest of it away, take yourself back if you're old enough. Take yourself back to 9/11. Do you remember that gratitude? Do you remember how we all felt then? Do you remember how we treated each other?
Where were you at?
Do you remember how we all felt we could lose it? For the record, just did an interview with James Woolsey.
What?
James is a former director of the CIA. We asked him, what do we need to do? His answer was simple.
Oh, wow.
Americans need to be Americans again. Americans need to know what they believe and why they believe it.
Why?
Then they need to get to know their neighbor, and they need to start being neighborly again.
We don't know if they're terrorists
To quote him,
or what.
because we are going to need each other soon. Sponsor of this half hour
Hey, at least they didn't
is Square Trade.
put them in the stadium.
The Square Trade protection plans
Japanese and they
safeguard you from spending a whole bunch of money that you just don't have to spend. If you have your insurance through a phone carrier, so you know, when you get it through Sprint or Verizon, you're probably paying about $11 a month. That is not something that they're trying to help you out. Those insurance companies work. Yes, I could. Yes, I could.
Oh, it could be.
But I know it takes a special person to love children that aren't yours, to make them yours, to see them as yours.
What are you talking about? Where do you think
That's hard,
Zero.
but it's dads that make all the difference in the world.
Dads make all the difference in the world.
The hardest thing I'll ever do is be a dad. I envy those who had great dads and make it easy. It just is easy for them. I don't know if I'm in the majority or the minority, but being a dad isn't always easy for me. It's getting easier.
All right.
I'm getting better.
We're gonna go past this.
And it has nothing to do with me reading any books that teach me how to be a dad.
Uh-oh. Let's listen to him.
It has everything to do with my priorities.
Ooh, baby.
My priorities have always been work, the country. My priorities are different now.
He's a workaholic, this guy.
When you're faced with
I got his movie.
losing it all because of
Play.
health or because of what you believe is coming or
Over the earth.
because of alcoholism or because you've lost your job,
In the latest blue right day.
you'll go through that first stage of panic.
Talking about God ruling.
And this is a really hard time of year to be jobless,
You know, man on the moon. He's kind
to be broke.
God's looking over us. He's pretty good.
But know that it has nothing to do with that.
Pretty good.
Life has nothing to do with that. Your children don't love you because of that.
Don't get me
That's
wrong.
a stupid, weird guy thing.
You know, he does. If this guy had the Holy Ghost, but you know what? I don't think.
But the other reason why this letter is so special is
very critical of churches. You know that are.
here's a 20-something
You know, have dogs.
that really gets it.
You know,
I didn't get it until I was 30.
Church real dogma too, though.
I was so self-absorbed and so self-righteous and know-it-all and everything else. Most people are like that in their 20s.
Using him
I started my 30s like that as well.
in the rapture. No, he goes. I wish I did.
And it wasn't until,
He goes. I wish I believed in the rapture. That Bible.
Gosh.
The Bible.
38
The word rapture is
Yeah.
caught up.
that I finally went to my stepmother, who
Yep. Yeah, no, he goes. I wish we did.
had
believe in the
real
rapture,
issues with.
because I'd love to go.
but I put them behind me
Glenn,
and
can't go.
had dinner one night with her and the family. And I said, you know, I've known you longer than I knew my mother. And I call Tanya's mom, Mom.
Oh.
But I call you D.
See, I never had that on my marriage either.
You've been by my dad's side longer
Mom,
than my mom.
close at all. No, it was her. No, it was my family. That's not supposed to be.
It's not me choosing my mom over
You call them mom, mom or dad.
you, or you choosing me choosing you over my mom.
Part of your family.
I know who my mom is. And I know the woman who played that role in my life here. Why I won't call my stepmother Mom, but I'll call my mother-in-law Mom, is ridiculous. It's a weird mental line that doesn't mean anything except to me. And I'm wrong.
I call Mary stepmom. I can't get. Of course, Mary's different.
Here's a girl in her 20s that gets it.
I've known Mary since I was a kid, man. 7, 8.
You know, I'm really shocked
It bothers me.
by when I wrote The Christmas Sweater, which was our biggest selling book.
How can you say you love, huh?
I think I sold almost 2 million copies of that. Second biggest selling book.
With regards to my father's will. Yeah, the
It didn't come as a shock to me that it changed lives,
will up.
because it was written as a story of redemption.
He's stealing from his kids.
This book is coming to me as a surprise,
I don't think so.
because that's not what I set out to do.
No.
I set out to tell a great story.
That way.
Love is not.
I set out to give a gift to my kids.
Yeah, they're not puffed up. They're not behave themselves.
That's how that book started. It wasn't this and another story that is yet to be written down,
An email saying, read the scriptures.
called The Sacred Pearl,
If you're
were written for my kids, not written for public consumption.
Doing no good though. She wouldn't care.
But I knew I wasn't alone
They only care about.
in the idea that that damn elf on a shelf has become Christmas and not the baby Jesus.
And controlling by money, they do that too.
That Christmas has been about presents and not the ultimate gift of redemption.
They cut him out of the will.
And that Santa is everywhere and Christ is being eliminated.
Yeah, the truth.
And the only thing that made me turn and be a better father is Christ. The only thing that made me turn and be a better son or stepson was Christ. The only thing that made me a better man and husband was Christ. Not Santa. Nothing. And we're erasing him. And we're erasing him for all kinds of reasons. But the worst reason of all is indifference. I didn't realize how autobiographical Agios is in some ways.
Who?
I guess when you write a story and tell a story, you always leave a piece of yourself on the table. There's a piece of you in all of the characters. And it has come as a shock to me that so many people are saying, I've read this and it has made me look at my life in a whole different way. It has made me appreciate this person in my life. It has stopped me dead in my tracks and reevaluate. I've been shocked that people will tell me, I cried at the very beginning, I cried at the middle, and I cried at the end.
The book for Mary for Christmas.
I was shocked that somebody said, this weekend, I just purchased my 25th copy
Of what?
because I know so many people that need this book.
What is the book? Christmas book. The name of the book? Pardon me? Is it a book called Family?
But
Book called Family?
I guess because it comes from me and it has all of the lessons that I learned
No, he's got talking about family.
of how to find out what's really important. People like this young girl in Shreveport
Well, I understand what's in the book.
are seeing.
Trying to find out what the
My dad, who's struggling right now,
That's all.
needs this because he'll remember this is why we love him. This is why we love him. Not because of all the things that he thinks. The Immortal Nicholas is available in bookstores everywhere and
Immortal is
at glennbeck.com/The Immortal.
Saint Nick.
Read it. Read it yourself, then read it for your family.
His new book.
Sponsor
I don't believe in
right now.
Immortal Saint Nick. So
Back in a minute.
Glenn Beck.
Stimulate all your senses.
The Blaze.
.com/TV.
The Blaze Radio Network.
Boom, boom, boom. Oh, I gotta shut the thing off.